So yeah, so we're going to take this ERD because it's already on the whiteboard. And we are going to implement it. But we're not going to do it all at once. We're going to do it in steps because we're good developers.
But we should have a picture already.
Yep. Oh yeah, like this is one of those like this is our wireframe. So you know how you build wireframes? We didn't actually implement everything at once. Like this is the wireframe. Now we want to implement it. I want to make sure I have volume, and I do. Good, good, good. All right, so here we are. I want to CD into it. I want to install a couple things, right?
Entity.
Yep. Want to install Entity Framework as well as what?
Yes.
I am recording. I want to install Entity Framework.
Sorry, my hands all. It's all right, buddy. Please do that.
There you go. And then I want to install the Postgres stuff as well. Nothing too crazy yet, right? .NET Restore. All right. And just so I don't forget to do it later, I'm going to create my DB. Hacker News. Cool. So what's the first thing that I want to do here? I've created my database, added all my dependencies, got all that.
Take a connection.
Oh, we gotta connect.
Yeah, so we want to create, so the first thing, so there's actually two paths that we can do here. The first one is to create our connection, create the DB context. The second option is to start creating some models. You're gonna have to do them both, but which one you do next is totally up to you.
I like these first, yeah. Let's do that.
All right, so let's do the context. How do we do that?
Okay, so connection string thing.
Connection string thing.
Go on, server
Server equals connection
Yeah.
string,
.NET EF.
EF, DB context, scaffold.
You just gotta
Local host or
Server.
data or the server equals local host.
Server's local host.
Semicolon. Database equals hacker news.
Is that what I called it?
Yes.
PG CLI.L. Yep.
You don't believe us. Oh, shit.
Hmm?
And then NPG. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Is it
SQL.
SQL?
This is definitely gonna be a sticky note on my desk.
I was gonna say this is something that you like have somewhere that you just kind of copy and paste. And quite honestly, like you don't do this enough to really learn that because you only do this once you start a new project, right?
You're not doing that a lot.
Yeah, like greenfield development is actually kind of rare. It's actually kind of unique and awesome, but it's uncommon. So like before every cohort, before we get this, I have to look this up again. So like that's just a thing. And then the last thing we do, we need to name it.
Obvious context. I mean, this is gonna be
Hacker News Context.
Does it have to have context though?
It doesn't have to, but
General.
best practice. Because remember, this is going to be our DB context. It's going to be our context, which is a class, which is something we created, and our name should be something meaningful.
That's to the database itself, right? To the actual database.
That's a connection to the database from SQL.
But if you, so somewhere in the application, because we have multiple tables,
Mhm.
you have to create individual strings, or do we?
For what?
So we're gonna have a table for user,
Correct.
we're gonna have a table for comments.
Correct.
If we pull in, so you're saying if we pull in the whole database, then we'll have automatically we'll have access to those tables?
Mhm.
Okay.
So all of those tables are going to be DB sets on our Hacker News context. All right. So now that we have that,
We're gonna create a folder.
We're gonna do that one little thing at the bottom here.
the one little thing, but first we need to create a folder. Because now that we have our context,
Good. We did the model first.
we need to start making our models. So, models. What models should we start with? Let's pick one to start with.
User.
User makes sense.
User makes sense? You want to do user?
Yeah.
I have a feeling you don't want to do user.
News articles?
Well, we should start one of those too, because they're the main ones.
Yeah, I would
News
say
articles.
between user
I
and
would
news
start
articles.
with one of those.
Okay, let's start with news articles, because that's the one you
Let's start with favorites. No, let's start with users. So you're on the right track. You always want to start with what's the main thing inside of the application. Y'all honed in on the user aspect. I personally hone in on the post aspect
News articles.
because hey, there's a whole bunch of posts here. That's my main thing that I'm storing.
Okay.
But if we want to work on the user, let's do that. I like being different. Gonna riff here now. All right, so we have a user class. So user dot CS inside of here namespace Hacker News database dot models. Public class user. Now, what does the user have?
Props.
Int ID, prop, string username, prop,
Karma, which is points.
And
Enters.
I think it's best practice to do Pascal case.
yes,
It is.
it is.
For C#, but in the database, or in SQL, it could be lowercase.
In Postgres, it should be snake case, but we don't care about what database we're on anymore. We're just in a C# line. It's handling all that stuff for us.
C# name.
about. And it's not a varchar.
Yeah, it's text.
It's text. It was hotly debated.
And created prop date time created.
String for about?
Yeah.
Texas is a database item. So
Oh,
string-
you don't put text there?
Right.
Okay.
We're-
Okay.
Again,
C# land.
C# land.
Yes. Yes.
Because this entity framework says, oh, you're in Postgres, that should be a text. Oh, you're in Microsoft SQL, that should be a nvarchar. Oh, you're in Oracle, that should be something else.
Gotcha. Now, light bulb.
Light bulb. So the created, we want it to be, we'll come back to that. Come back to that. Don't do anything too crazy here. Feeling good with this? All right, so over here in our context now, let's get rid of that warning just to hide it. So now we have our models, and we have our connection to the database. We need to now put our models inside of our context so we actually get them inside of our database. So this is where we need to add something.
Yeah.
What do we need to add here?
Public. DB set.
Oh, type.
Hacker News
User.
This is the name of the model.
Yep,
Very parser.
DB set.
Did you import that?
I did not
I
yet.
saw user data. Or yeah, users.
Oh.
That's good.
The table's called users? Okay. That's,
So wait, hold on. What is the user is the name of the model.
Yeah,
Users is the name of the
table.
in the database.
Yep.
Okay. Any reason why we call it different?
So it's nomenclature best practice. We have a user, which represents a user.
An individual.
That's kind of the schema. That's kind of like the blueprint for it. Then we're saying inside it, we have a table that's going to store multiples of that blueprint.
Okay.
So it's usually the plural.
Will we have to do this for every table?
Correct.
Okay.
So really yesterday, instead of seen animals and seen animals table, it should have been seen animals, seen animals.
Yeah. But they don't have to be the same.
Seen animal and seen.
Animals.
Seen.
Yes.
I mean,
So it's like seen animals,
Seen animal.
or users.
Next model? Or do we wanna set this one first?
What do we think we should do?
Do another one. Do another table.
Should we?
Well, yeah, because that
Well,
way,
we need to
when
add
you
that
do
to
a
this.
data migration, you do all of them all in one shot? Or do you want?
Do you want to do all of them in one shot? Do you want to do a 5 table migration all in one shot?
Well, I think
Well, for
to
us,
have,
we should do one, but in production, since you're experienced, since you know what you're doing,
so I see why you wanted to start with news articles, because then we can have content. Whereas users like, well, what are you gonna do with a useless user without anything else?
We're not even worried about content yet. But like, the fact of the point is, do we want to make one migration for everything, or do we want to do each one in its own migration?
I guess it would be,
Each one in its own.
if you do one at a time, it'd be easier to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah.
With each one?
Yep.
So assume failure.
Yeah, it's not assuming failure. It's coding with intent.
Right.
Because at this point, like, we could create like a couple of these tables and go, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted.
That's what, right.
Because out in the real world, what you'll be doing is you'll be writing a table, then writing code against it. So instead of having 5 tables and then writing code against 5 tables, then it's like, oh, something went wrong. I go, oh, I can identify issues and fix problems as we go. It's just like you don't want to write 20 CSS class, apply all 20, and then hope for the best, right? I feel some painful flashbacks in there. So let's create migration. How do we migrate?
terminal.
.NET.
.NET
Yeah.
EF migration.
No,
That's what migration
something else.
.NET EF database.
And then you gotta do the name of the migration, the count, it's like a
migration.
add
Table name.
user. Okay.
Add users.
Some meaningful message like a commit. Can be camel case, can be snake case. If it's more than one word, you need to use quotes. But I usually do a camel case short phrase of like what exactly I did. And because I like to do small migrations, it's super simple.
No.
No.
Then we gotta
.NET EF.
update,
Database
Database.
update.
Database on
if it'll work.
I really need to update my tools. .NET, EF,
Database
database.
update.
So that's the commit and push.
Yep. So here we're saying what we're doing. We're saying, hey, whenever we update our database, do this stuff. Then we're actually updating it.
So yeah, that's the commit with the message at the end.
So let's check it and determine, make sure it's.
Yeah, it's always good to double check ourselves. So now if I do PDCLI, Hacker News, nope.
Check it when.
Database.
My God,
Database.
one of those kind of days. Aha. DT. We have users and the migrations history table.
See what, make sure it's there, I gotta see it.
You got to see it. You got to see it.
I have, if it's me, I'm doing this.
Yeah, it's a schema, right?
Yes.
So that's the schema for our users, right? So far, so good. Have we looked at the EF migrations table yet?
Quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So, in the database, we have the option of text or varchar.
Yes.
So, if we wanted varchar, will we have to do a char?
Nope.
It's always going to be text.
It's going to default to text. We are going to explore probably tomorrow when we get to it something called attributes. and we can put those on top of our properties to designate what type we want our columns to be. So right now, C# and any framework are doing its best job to give it what it thinks is right. So saying, hey, this is a string. This is going to be any sort of collection of characters of some unknown length. We're going to slap a text on it. But if like, oh wait, we want this to be a actual varchar or something like that, then we can say, hey, this is of type varchar. But text is fine. So the migrations table has two columns, migration date and product version. Let's actually see that select star from EF migration history. Has one row in it right now. And it has, hey, product version looks like the runtime for my dev tools, whatever tools I'm working with right now. And it also has what migration was just ran.
That's the time, isn't it?
Yep, well that's the ID of the migration.
Right. But it's based off time.
Yep, time and whatever we typed in.
So if you typed in the same message next time, it would still be different.
Right,
Yeah,
because it's the
then
current time.
First number is different.
Yeah, because it's the year, it's the month, it's the day. Whew, it's the 18th. And then 15:03:59, I made it about 4 minutes ago. 15 is UTC time, so it's whatever time it is over in London right now. So yeah,
6 o'clock,
It's actually
quarter
date,
after 6.
date, month, year with the 20 in front.
Well, you're
so it's completely unique as long as you don't make two in the same second with the exact same name. But even if you do, I think it actually handles that collision. But just don't.
Can you come back to it?
Can I roll back to it? Oh yeah.
Let's say we messed up on a couple things and just
Yeah.
all that migration back.
So
we
.NET
store from that.
EF database H. Let's check out our database commands. We can drop the database. Then we can go in and actually remove the migrations from our folder, and it'll remove the migrations.
So drop means it goes back to the last one.
Drop.
Drop means drop.
It's written.
.NET
the
EF database drop.
That's not. Not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not unless it's a development
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah, and as you kind of what tends to happen with ORMs and stuff like that, it's not uncommon to drop and recreate your database. So that idea of like deleting it and rebuilding it, like that should feel good to you. Because I know as new developers, it's something that I personally had an issue with when I was younger. Was hey, I don't want to drop anything because I don't want to lose it. I don't want to delete it. It's there. It's working. I just want to keep it there. What if I can't get it back? But that's the whole point of ORMs is that we're creating this blueprint, this history of what needs to be migrated, what needs to happen. So like this is built to be able to drop and recreate databases really fast.
So once again, how do you restore it?
How to go back to a version? It would be migrations.
Okay.
So using your migrations, you can remove migrations from it.
Decommitting.
Is that the same thing as restoring it to its previous state?
Because you would remove commits and then you would re-update your database.
So it's a two-step process.
what does script do?
It generates a SQL script for your migrations. So it looks, yeah, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So what that is that, yeah, this is awesome. We're going to get to a point where we'll have the option to run automatic migrations. What that means is that every time we query the database in C#, it's going to check the version number. And if the version number in the database doesn't match the version number inside of your C# code, it's going to update the database automatically.
So C# takes precedent over the
Mhm.
terminal?
Potentially, yeah. It sounds dangerous, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. A lot of people don't like that. A lot of people likes to have the production environment behind a closed wall. So instead of you running your automatic migrations against your production environment, you create the SQL and you run the SQL against it yourself. So this kind of previews of like what exactly it's going to do.
Is there any differences between just like how many more steps are there to putting this database on server That's not localhost.
Not many.
Really?
Yeah, because really we have the blueprint for it. It's you run migrations against that server instead of your local server.
Just changing to where it's
Yep. All right, so we have our first table. Now what do we want to do?
We're not putting stuff in yet?
Not yet.
Let's make another table.
What table do we want to make next?
Or news articles, or posts, as you want to call it.
I do call it post a lot. Make it news articles? 'Cause that's what you call it.
Yeah.
So
Post articles, articles.
yeah, we're making your it's your diagram.
News article.
I'm just the typist here.
It does have an exclamation point, so it is very
ERD. So we need to make a new file called news articles.
That will do articles.
Yeah, the model will be article.
Article. You spell that right? Article.
Yes.
I was just emphasizing singular.
Singular. Yeah.
Not.
That doesn't look right to me.
Article. No,
That's good.
That's good. I'll take your word for it. Namespace.
Hacker
Hacker News database. Got public class article. What goes inside of an article?
Key,
What else?
URL, which is text, which we call that string.
Karma.
Integer, karma, good.
Title.
String, title. User ID.
Alright, this is a foreign key.
Here
Ooh.
we go.
We'll do created.
See how you didn't put it on the bottom?
So you don't put creator on the end?
No, my
Chris
God.
swore to God that we had to put it on. Said it's date time, it has to be on the bottom.
Now I can't see it.
You know what?
Bottom to bottom.
Just to make Chris upset.
You gotta be kidding.
Okay.
I'm mad.
Alright, foreign keys.
Is that gonna make the table have that as the first one?
Yes.
Because if it is, can't have that.
It will. But like, you can.
For
but
today,
you don't
order
like
does it matter? Order could matter at some point.
Think about looking at a table with a long Unix thing.
First,
You don't want to have.
Maybe I like that. Don't make
No,
assumptions
because
about
there's
people.
views. You create a view of what you want to
Let's
see.
say-
What
Yeah.
about what about if you're
order doesn't matter, but it does. But it doesn't.
If you're someone who would learn to read left to right, you might be more comfortable having the idea at the end. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, like so if you read
ID.
not backward, but like if you learned in a culture that read
Yeah.
flipped of what we did, to me, code written in a foreign language is super interesting. Like just how it's formatted, because there's not that many format differences. The variable name, like the keywords, are still the same. So it'd be like public class and then some French word.
Yeah.
We were talking about this the other day, I think.
Mhm.
If they have like converters that change like the key
I mean,
names.
the language is
So,
the
like-
same. The thing's gonna change. Like you're calling title here,
Yeah.
they'll probably call something
Well,
whatever the
what
name
we're
is
saying
for
is,
title.
like,
They're
Does
Yeah.
somebody have like that converts public int into like a Chinese characters, or does it just say public int?
It just says public int and then the whatever name there. It's
Variable.
that's me like that's why it's super interesting because it's a really weird mix of cultures.
Okay.
So like here, like the left to right thing doesn't matter. Maybe a top or down thing, but generally they're gonna take the form of what's the standard in the language.
yeah.
Because at a certain point you're like, I don't know where stuff goes.
It's gonna be a best practice based on the
Mhm.
same as we're doing.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's
For
actually
sure.
in other languages when you're writing code. It's actually easier since it's easier to differentiate between keywords and your own
Mhm.
words. That actually makes it better. Because we're right now, like when we first learned to code in English, it's like I don't even know the difference between
What is a keyword? What's not
Yeah.
a keyword? Yeah.
That's what they got.
That's the colors. Yeah, exactly.
But if you're building something like you did for yourself, your Dungeons and Dragons style, that you probably go to play and then you open your computer and you're updating your database, probably that they could do it in a total different way.
Oh yeah.
Just because they're gonna name it in their language, they'll probably have the things to be able to read from right to left and
Mhm.
stuff.
And I don't know if Andy touched on this, but that's one of the challenges of designing a website. Is that like we're designing it for a language that reads left to right. That's how our is trained.
Accessibility, yeah.
But like parts of the world, If you're going to go global with your app, they read from right to left. So does your UI support that change in direction? Because really, at the end of the day, your translations for your site is just a different text file that you read. So if you want to make your site global, every single text that's on your screen has to come from a resource file. You just change that resource file to French, to Canadian, to German, to Chinese, to whatever. And automatically your site's translated. But if that's a different how you read text, then you gotta think about how do you change your CSS to accommodate for that new direction.
That's why there's a role reverse for display flags.
That's so far-fetched. For a second,
It's a
it
theory.
was like,
You
wait a
thought
minute.
about it?
It's wait a minute.
Reverse
If
and
Homer's in a
reverse.
coma, it could be true.
That's true.
Look at this,
If,
Mark.
if
It's
Peter,
like a news
yeah,
page from Israel.
hmm
Like everything is.
yeah, it's formatted differently.
So off topics.
So yeah,
It's-
you have
yeah.
to go here.
Foreign
I
keys.
don't know how it even works.
Let's go.
Yeah, then
So,
change
yeah.
the language to U.S. language, and it will.
Yeah, it changes. Yeah, so it's using a different
the whole
style
thing
sheet.
will-
So at that point, it's saying, hey, here's my style sheet for these languages. Here's my style sheet for these
Yeah,
languages.
that's all they're doing.
Speaking of style sheets for languages, foreign keys.
Foreign keys.
So let's create this. Let's add this article to our context. So disclaimer, you could do foreign keys and databases in the same migrations, but I want to do them in a different one just to kind of see them. So I'm going to add these to my context.
Say that again?
Oh, you can add a foreign key and add a table in the same migration, but I'm going to do them in different migrations just to kind of see them. So we're going to do public db set article, articles, get set. I'm going to add a new migration now, .NET EF migrations add added article table.
That's fine. It's enabled.
Advocacy.
I have a website that's still running today that I built 10 years ago that I misspelled administrator in the routing. It is spelled administrator. It's still like that to this day.
I did a misspelling in the database, and I did it correct.
Yeah,
You
yep.
can't change things like that.
I can,
But
but it was never a priority because there was 3 administrators and no one really noticed. So it took another developer to join the project before they noticed. And it's like, okay, looks like we're not going to change
There
it.
was some other guy who did
Shout out
that.
DOB.
No, that was a failed project hard. Sometimes I'll tell you all about it. Nope.
update.
Database.
update.
Mhm. So after we update it, assume it works.
So
Yep.
now we're about to make a foreign key. My question is, can you make a foreign key before the table that was references to is made?
Nope.
Okay.
You cannot. Because of how Entity Framework does foreign keys.
So it was right that we did user first.
You could have done news articles first, then make user,
And then go
add
back.
foreign key.
But we can do it in 2 steps because I might user first.
So we were lucky we did it right.
Instead of 3, we did it in 2.
That's right. Efficiency.
I could have done it in 3 too. As I said, you can add a new table and a foreign key in the same commit. So, anyways,
Foreign keys.
other way. So done, we applied it. So now we want to add a foreign key. Now, one user has many articles. So as you pointed out, we have a user ID on the news article. So we want to tell our model here that, hey, this article has a user. So we need to add 2 properties to this model. The first one, we want to add the actual foreign key itself. So user ID. And then the second thing that we need to add is called its navigation property, which is an instance of that class. So these 2 properties together say that it has a foreign key to the user table.
But they're not related at all.
What?
They're not related at all.
Yeah, they are.
How?
User ID Entity Framework is smart enough to see a property called user ID, and then a navigation property called user to know that that is a foreign key for the user.
You can't just put like a little thing on top that says ID.
So there is a way to decorate them, but this is the most straightforward way.
I can't draw a key.
I mean, if you want. A little ASCII art key. It won't do anything, but
So user ID is defined as a key by the entity
Mhm.
because of the way syntax.
Yep.
And
So-
because it then sees a user ID, that's how it's making the connection.
It's not that straightforward. I
It-
mean, it's a convention, okay?
Yeah.
Fine, but
Now, just, if that wasn't the case, is there a way to shoehorn it and let it know that this is relatable?
oh yeah.
Okay.
So like this is using the naming convention where you have foreign model ID and then foreign model. So whatever like it's saying, hey, user ID, this is my foreign key for my user property. So it's using that keyword user there because our other class is called user. If that wasn't the case, if we wanted to name it something else for whatever reason, we can do that. We can actually go in and configure that. But this is how you do it with the least amount of configuration.
It might be weird on comments when we have parent ID, but it references comments.
Mhm.
So in that case, we'd have to do something else, right?
That's kind of like the bonus topic there.
And compound keys?
Bonus.
We'll put a pin in that.
Put it down there.
We'll punt that to a later date.
So a date to be determined.
Yes.
like Battleship.
That's never.
That's code for Neverland.
Yeah, we'll do
Yeah, we'll kick it off to a Neverland. So I want to add another migration.
Messenger of Death. Let's go there, guys.
It's such a good theory because it makes it super interesting. Added foreign key to article. So let's see what this does inside of our migration
Update.
after we update it, or before we update it. Migrations. So added foreign key to article. So let's see. So inside of our migration, we have our up and our down. Inside of the up, we see we're adding a column to articles, right? That's the first thing that we're doing. We're creating that index and we're making it a foreign key. And that's it. So remember last week or whenever you did the foreign key stuff, you just kind of added a foreign key, alter table, so-and-so, add column, I forget what it was now. Employee ID or department ID, references department. That's doing this. That is adding that foreign key for us. So you notice on line 12 that it is not nullable. So it has to be something. Does that sit well?
No. So a user has to have, or I'm sorry, well, a news article has to have a user. Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
So what if I wanted to make that optional? I mean, it doesn't make sense here.
Anonymous user,
What?
like a anonymous user.
We can have one
No
like
user.
root anonymous user. You know, that's
Is
what.
there a decorator for it? Is it like not required?
There's a way to make a type nullable.
Okay.
Because integers, remember, let's kind of set some context here. Integers by themselves in C# can't be null, right? The default value is 0. We can't make a integer null. So we need to make that a nullable type. So I'm actually going to remove this migration, change my model, and make it a nullable integer. So I want to remove it. So .NET EF migrations remove.
It's right there.
Just remove the last one.
Why not just change it and remigrate it?
Because if I ever delete that folder, and that's not uncommon, and regenerate it. I'm going to go back in and change it again. So I removed my last migration. Come in and close this. To make this nullable, I add a question mark to it. And that's it. So now that can be any real number, 0, -1, -100, 101, or it can be null.
Didn't we have that question before? Somebody asked.
Yeah, it's in colons.
Probably.
Ah,
This shouldn't be the first time that you see that.
Uh-huh.
So now can you call it whenever that is null,
Mm-hmm.
be this a specific string or something?
So let's re-add my migration now. I'll call it the exact same thing, just keep it nice and simple. Let's head in and check out our migrations. Now our nullable is true.
So that's better than just going in there and changing it.
Yes. Because these were automatically generated for us, a good rule of thumb in all languages and everywhere is if you ever have code that's being generated for you by some sort of tool, be it SAS, Entity Framework, React, anything like that, anything that's generating for you code, never go in and actually change the code that was generated. Go back and modify what's generating the code to create new code.
Push too.
Yeah.
Just to make sure there's not gonna be any ramifications down the road.
Right.
That's gonna make the whole
Right.
thing, and then you wouldn't even know what's going on.
Exactly. You should almost think as these migrations as like a black box you can open up and peer into.
You don't wanna go into that.
Mm-hmm. So let's change this back to actually being null, not nullable, because it makes sense, as Mike pointed out, like every article should have a user, right?
But not every comment should have a parent.
Right.
Read that.
But what if just make a if it's null,
Mm-hmm.
just default to something.
It
Probably
depends.
like
Well, nothing can be
no
posted.
username provided.
No one, you can't post unless you have a user. There's no guest or
Yeah.
something
Oh,
like
let's
that.
say
Yeah, that's the logic of the site is that you
That's
can't
a
you can
lot.
only guess, you can only post if you're actually using.
anonymously, yeah.
That's probably for the best.
But if you could post if you were anonymous, that means that this could be null for a person, and then you do exactly what you say. Is if user ID equals null, then say, hey, no username found or posted by anonymous.
Okay, so we just do the Java.
Yeah.
Let's C# for that.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, you could make it to where a null value on the site displays troll,
Yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
As if you're unregistered.
You're definitely.
There's sites that let you comment anonymously. There's a lot of them they don't anymore
Mm-hmm.
because of that.
For probably good reason.
Yeah.
Did you remove it?
Yeah, I'm gonna re-add it here real fast then. And then I'm actually going to run it. Because remember, all the changes I'm doing have been in C# land. I haven't really committed to my database yet.
So it's a good rule of thumb.
What?
Good rule of thumb to after you add a migration, go back, check the migration,
Before
make sure it's
updating.
good, and then update the database.
That's what I always do. You don't have to if you feel super confident, but I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself to make the right choices, so I always try to double check what's going on.
So up until now, we were just basically playing with the files, looking
Yeah.
back and forth.
We're playing with the cookie cutter. We haven't actually made cookies yet. We're saying, hey, this is supposed to be a reindeer. We need more antlers, or we need one antler. Oh, we need a nose here, or something like that. Now let's actually make the cookies.
Database.
Yep. How are we feeling so far? So, comments?
So we built two tables.
Yep.
We built a relationship between them. Should,
And now this is GitHub commit.
Yep, that's a GitHub commit.
Did you send them?
Not yet.
So eventually when you sync them, it would just push the whole thing.
Yeah, I haven't pushed it yet. I just committed it locally.
Okay, so my question was, you can keep committing here after you're, let's say you finish your project, you open the GitHub repo,
Mm-hmm.
you bring the deadline that basically joins them, and then push it, and the whole
Yep.
different commits are gonna
Yes.
go up there.
So like I've committed like twice so far. Both of those commits will go up whenever I push. Chris, you have something?
Why is there a migrations folder? And like, why isn't that just stored locally or, you know?
Because now whenever you pull this down and you update your database with my changes, so I've made changes, right? I made changes to a database. On Chris's machine, Chris is on my dev team, and he's pulling down my project. He's going to pull it down, get it cloned, blah, 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 blah. He's going to run .NET Restore to pull down, install the latest dependencies. Then he needs his database, because he's also working locally on his machine as well. He's adding a column, adding features.
We're talking today about that.
Now
You
he
don't
has
have data, it's in your machine.
Yeah, so now he has to get the database on his machine. He doesn't care about the data, he just cares about the schema, so he can work with it. He's going to run a database, a .NET EF database update. Now it's going to look at that migrations folder that's in there, and it's going to look at that migrations table inside of your database. It's going to go, which ones are not run yet, and run them in that order. So it's going to apply all the migrations from my machine to your database.
Oh, that's what that does.
Yeah.
So basically, it creates the data. He doesn't do a create DB. This will create the database for him.
He'll sort of do a create DB, but he won't have to create any of the tables, any of the schemas,
Okay.
anything inside of it.
Is the .NET EF migrations removed? Is that equivalent to just going into your migrations folder and deleting it?
I believe technically yes.
Like, the reason why is because if you wanted to delete a migration before
Mhm.
the previous one, but not the previous one,
So if you wanted to go in and delete like this one,
yeah.
yeah, you would have to go in and remove two. You can,
Okay.
you can think of it as like a stack,
Okay, you couldn't remove.
right? Because this one depends on this one being here potentially.
Potentially.
I mean, so let's just kind of look at this real fast. So if we removed this one, this migration for whatever reason, Jason, I'll come back to you in a second. This migration is creating a table for us. This migration, the next migration, is assuming that we have a articles table.
Gotcha.
So it's assuming that it has something in a past migration.
So if you delete the table,
You could potentially ruin that chain somewhere down the way. Jason?
If you're like part of a team or working on big projects with a ton of migrations, do they ever rename them or do they all? Okay.
Yeah, that comes down to how does the team manage that folder. A common way to help manage that complexity, because yeah, this folder is going to get huge after a while, right? It's going to be like your git commit trail. Like after a while, it's going to get pretty big. So what will typically happen is every so often, typically with a release or some sort of milestone, they will delete all the migrations and rerun the migrations against an empty database to generate a snapshot of the database at that release.
but as a junior dev, you're not going to be deleting.
Yeah, as a junior dev, like that's way beyond the scope of what you need to care about. Follow your senior dev on that one. Just know that migrations are a thing. It's a very fluid folder, potentially. So yeah.
I've heard a lot that junior devs are not trusted with anything back end. So is there actually a job for them? Or
Oh yeah,
like doing the
yeah.
data,
It's-
add the data.
And it's not junior developers are not trusted with backend. Is that typically developers shouldn't be trusted with backend development. I know that sounds like
Yeah.
but wait a minute, they're developers. They're also people. So hopefully there's some sort of like processes and safety guards in place so you don't mess things up. Because like if you mess up a production environment, that could be big. It doesn't matter if it's you as a junior developer or me as a senior developer. Like if I drop the database, like I'm still dropping the database. The database is still getting dropped. It doesn't matter. You know.
Yeah, you're losing a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those like the company should have like safeguards. It should have fences, firewalls, procedures. Like you should not have direct access to production environment. You know, you just shouldn't.
Who does that?
who does that.
But guys, at the end, somebody has to.
Yeah, it's typically there's typically a gatekeeper of some aspect.
You call the CEO, hey, come on, we think we're done. Push the button. You're responsible now. Just
Yeah,
push the button.
like you joke, but that's how it is. Like that's DevOps. We talked about a DevOps
Yeah.
position. They're typically in charge of that. So like they're taking your code and applying it over there. So now, yes, they've shifted their responsibility from you to them, but now that's one person where that's their job.
So there are, basically, there's a database
Their job's
development team.
Like an administrator.
Yeah, it's like a database administrator. It could be a senior developer who has the keys. It could be a DevOps. It could be a developer on a separate team that has the keys.
The keys?
Yeah, well, like the passwords, the credentials, the server
Oh.
URL, stuff like that.
The security.
Yeah, I've been on teams where that's before. I've been in a company that has multiple dev teams working on multiple products. But in order for one team to deploy to a production environment, it has to go through a developer on the other team. That's kind of like a sanity check. Like, oh, you folks over there on that team are actually doing good work. It's not doing anything destructive. You're not dropping a database. You're not corrupting data. You know, it's kind of a nice little built-in safety check.
Yeah, a single guy company will just have your
Yeah,
own safety
like-
check. But if you have 2 or 3, then you add a little bit more. And if you're a big, huge, humongous company like Apple, maybe
Yeah.
the safety checks are
Yeah,
enormous too.
and
because
it's-
there's a lot of
Yeah, and it's like how automated are the safety checks? What do you have? Because there is continuous integration, continuous deployment. You know, that idea is the thing, and it's been successful. But there's a lot of infrastructure going in to make sure that like any one developer can't foobar the system.
Yeah, and there's also regulatory requirements, especially in financials.
Oh yeah,
Where
that's
you go, show us how you separate.
yeah. It is. Oh, what's the one that I just went through?
Surveillance officer.
No, it is. If I think about it for a second, it's not Sprock compliant, but it's like a whole bunch of compliance things. Like you have your dev team is different from your deployment team. You know, you don't have credentials shared. Your developers don't have access to direct production environment. There's a whole bunch of like a checklist of like of what needs to happen.
And security owns the keys to all of them, so if you wanna do something administratively wise.
Yeah, you have to
You
go
have
through.
to ask for requests, they'll give you a temporary ID with the public keys, only the access that you need
Exactly. Like it's a whole different process. So yeah, like, you know,
is a process.
that's not wrong in saying that people don't trust junior developers with their database.
You just don't trust anybody.
They just don't trust anybody with their database, or they shouldn't. At least. Of course, ideal world, your mileage may vary. Just always double check your connection strings. So where were we? We were at 1138. We were adding comments. That is another one-to-many relationship. Okay, I can dig it. We're going to leave off parent ID for now,
Okay.
just to manage that complexity a little bit.
So we're just doing like a single comment that
Yeah.
attached an article.
Yep.
By the user. And the user.
So here we are. Same as before. We need to add a new model, right? Call it a comment model. Namespace. Hacker News database. Oh, geez, public class. Comment. I'm excited to get to Visual Studio tomorrow. So prop int ID, prop, what else is on there? Content. String.
String
Content.
Yeah. And then we have to create it a time.
Mhm.
Well, we're gonna create it, then we'll come back and do the foreign keys.
Oh,
That's so backwards. Date time.
Then
probably
two
should have done
keys.
daytime.
Hmm?
Probably should have just done it, and then just done a go. That'd been better.
Computed.
So
It's your idea, but yeah.
Two
we want to add
foreign
2 foreign keys, right?
article and user.
So we want to add our navigation properties, navigation to users, navigation to
Article.
articles. So prop int user ID.
We're gonna do it all together.
Yeah.
Okay. second.
Yeah, prop
User.
user, and then down here, prop int
Article ID.
article ID, and prop article. Yep.
Article of article.
Mhm.
That was trippy when you found out that you could make types.
Yeah, right. It's trippy whenever we get too generics and types don't matter anymore.
So with this thing,
Yeah.
And generics types don't matter anymore, the generic was the type of type.
Yeah, but it can be anything.
Type.
Some types don't matter, but they do matter. It's really abstract talk. It's a lot of fun. Ta-da! So let's make our migration. .NET EF migrations added comment table with foreign keys.
Okay. Fresh Kitchen. Oh, anybody? Fresh Kitchen. Good place.
It's far, but
Is
it's
it the biscuit?
good.
It's far. No.
What biscuit?
You talking about Cracker Barrel?
Oh,
You said biscuits.
Is that the place that
Maple Street.
Oh, that place is good too, but that's expensive.
What's bad about Cracker Barrel?
Cracker Barrel's great.
I like that.
Everybody else is making
Breakfast? Yeah.
Not for this neighborhood.
yeah, no, it's
Guys, man,
not hipster enough.
I'm just offended with that.
Yeah. .NET, yeah.
So Cracker Barrel is fine with me.
Oh, it's popular and successful. Yeah.
So what happened about the part of checking the stuff and for okay, don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I probably should have checked it first.
We're good.
I was going into a developer mode there where I was kind of doing things.
Good.
So, but as Gus pointed out, let's check out what was added for us.
Kinda late.
Ooh,
Oh, nothing.
ooh, nothing.
Should've checked.
We should have checked it. Now we have an empty commit here.
Oh, nice.
Don't we have empty commits in each one of them? Do the first one.
You didn't save it,
Oh no.
but that was it?
Oh no. So what did we forget to do?
Save comment.
DB.
Oh, we didn't add it to the
Oh.
context. Darn.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Talking about Cracker Barrel.
Yeah. Mediocre breakfast food was distracting.
Oh, man.
I'm hurt.
Mediocre is still good.
It's still
Yeah.
good. but-
It's still
No, it's
good.
a lack of good.
It's still good.
It's a type of good.
Comments.
Yeah.
Comments.
Yes. See? Mediocre comment.
So I want to remove that last database. So migrations. Remove. So what this remove is doing, this remove is looking at that last migration and running what is in this down. So see how the migration file has two parts to it, up and a down? When we apply the migration, it's what are we adding? And the down is always the opposite.
Was it teardown?
It's a rollback almost, so to speak. So if we head over here to something that actually has something, we have, hey, we're adding a column, we're creating an index, adding a foreign key. The opposite of that is dropping the foreign key, dropping the index, and dropping the column.
In the opposite order too.
Exactly.
Stack. order.
Yeah, it manages the order for us.
That's nice.
Yeah, because you can't drop a column before you drop the index. You can't drop the index before you drop the foreign key.
Oh, it should be smart enough to know that if you're going to drop the column, you
Mhm.
drop everything inside of it.
Yeah.
But I guess
Migration
it's
has
a-
already been applied to the data. Revert it and try again.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you updated it.
Yeah, I actually ran it against the database.
Revert it and try. So can't you just
I mean, it's blank, so I can.
commit now and
Yeah, it's
Update
blank, so I can
it,
just kind of keep on going.
yeah. You didn't do anything wrong. You
Yeah.
just didn't do anything.
It is, yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna say for real.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Taco bar.
Oh, it's not a string.
It's an
Oh,
important
it is.
message.
That is a very important message.
Man, I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah, right.
Even
There was
taking me
There was
to
a
whatever.
programming humor Reddit post that was like, I missed the old version control. It's like GitHub, no. Then it was like, there's another one, and then the last one was like Word documents, where it was like, first one is final, and then it's like final for real.
Final for real,
6.
actual,
So
yeah.
go check it.
Oh, yeah.
So now let's check it.
Is that the one with
Extra final.
the DeepMind.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So this looks better.
So are you looking at the time to pick that one out of that from the list?
Yep. I also know it's going to be the last one. Or it's going to be not this one,
one of
not
those
this
two.
one, but it's going to be that one.
So what just out of curiosity, if you were just to delete that file?
Manually from there?
Yeah.
That's what he said. It's the same thing as removing it, but you don't want to do one
Could be
beforehand.
Right.
You want to do it in order.
Yeah. So we'll look at that after we get this sorted out. Our next commit will do that. Commits. We're creating a table called comments with the stuff that we have. Everything looks good. Constraints, primary key, foreign key, foreign key. Everything looks good, right? .NET EF database update. Favorites. Now it's time for favorites.
News article favorites first.
News article favorites?
Like, we had a question. I would take your opinion on it. So, would there be a way to combine them?
What do you mean?
Or should you separate them? Comments, since they're both favorites.
They are both favorites. You can favorite a comment and favorite an article, right?
Right. Would there be a way to make it one table? Or do you think it's better to just separate? Always better to separate if you can, because that way
Well,
you can.
we actually separated it because in the page, you either look for one or look for the other. You're not looking for favorite of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a favorite of comments or a favorite news articles.
So I can come in here. How do I favorite this?
Go to the user, that user and TR there. Well, how do you favorite? But if you go to the user,
Here,
you'll see
I'm
the
gonna-
two links to see favorite comments or favorite.
Hey, I favorited. Yeah.
And you see there, when you favorite, there's a,
Can I favorite a comment?
you should be able to.
Well, it's different of can I? I don't see a way to do
You
it.
saw it before.
I don't
If you go
remember,
into
I don't
users-
remember.
Go to comments right there.
If you go to an individual user, you can look at their favorite comments.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's what it was.
So here's
Says
comments, favorites.
Not-
No, go back. There's
So
no-
really
those are
it's
the
not
comments.
favorite comments,
Favorites,
it's
and there
favorite
is submissions and comments.
Submissions and comments.
So submission is calling a news article, and comments calling.
So it says that she hasn't actually favorited anything yet.
Yeah, we didn't find very many.
that one doesn't.
So let's check out a comment to see if we can. Because that could be an appendix of features.
But we saw
No, we
some
saw-
users
there was a
with
few.
favorite comments.
Well, did we find anybody with favorite comments?
Yeah.
We saw favorite threads.
Yeah,
but
go
did we
back.
see-
I'll tell you which one.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I can't remember the name. Oh well, it's been 2 hours.
Oh yeah, you're never going to find it. But I don't want to go down here and discuss. I want not news. There we go. So I want to be able to favorite this comment, but I cannot. If I click this. Oh, it's my voting.
Vote. So the vote is the favorite.
Yeah. Oh,
Maybe.
I want to unvote because I didn't read it.
False branding.
It is.
But go into the.
So now I favorited that one. If I
Are
go
you
to
logged
me,
in?
yeah.
Okay, so check for your comment. Favorite submissions,
Comments.
favorite comments.
See, that's just useless.
So to add a comment here, click on the timestamp to go to this page, then click favorite.
Click on the timestamp to go to its page. Oh, jeez. So click on the
Time.
Hour.
an hour ago.
Then there should be.
Oh, jeez.
Favorite.
See, this is terrible. This is not a good UI.
That's a terrible UI. That's a bad user experience
Yeah, true that.
for that feature. That being
For
said, how often do you want to favorite a comment?
Never.
I don't even know why that's.
But it's useful for machine learning.
I mean, maybe for targeting ads or stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe you
like-
only want to get comments with a particular score.
So
Let's move on.
yeah. So do we need to do that? So now, that's a good question. Is can we combine these in some way? What does that look like? What would that look like? There's two ways to combine these. And that's if we want to combine them. I'm not sold that we need to combine them, but let's kind of explore this idea because it might come up at some point. So we would want something to track favorites. We have one table that's going to track it to two different tables. What are some ideas here? Let's kind of bounce them around because this is important to kind of discuss. So one option we have is to throw them into one table, call it favorites,
And have a column to
Ha-
designate.
have an ID,
And then it would just
a
be
user ID,
user ID,
as
comment,
well as a comment
Comment.
ID
and a news article.
and a news article ID.
And then a boolean.
Why?
It could be like is article or is comment.
Well, if it's for a comment, the news article is going to be null.
Oh.
Then if it's for a news article, then the comment's going to be null. How do we feel about this?
I dig it.
Well, that was our first thought,
That was
and then
my
we
first
we,
But we didn't came on that. We came on that. Yeah, you might have comments and news aren't the same. So no, we have to either one or the other for each ID, and that works.
What are you gonna use it for?
create a parent-child relationship.
To store the favorites.
For the user?
Yeah.
You see?
So we have one
Only
user.
if one or the other.
So now we've combined this into one table. So what do we gain from this? Because now we're changing, we're changing from our original data to this.
yeah.
Always think about what do you gain and what do you lose. So what do we gain?
Less tables.
Less tables.
We're gaining less tables.
But more confusion. So
Our data model isn't as explicit anymore. It's more restricting in a sense.
Yeah, it's kind of rigid.
Is less table a pro? Really?
I mean,
Is it?
that's what we talked at the start of it.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what we came to. We said,
Yeah.
well, you could, but it'd be better to separate them.
We were talking about.
So instead of
There's-
two intermediaries, you just have one.
yeah. So
Yeah,
these
there
two
only be
tables
one
will be gone.
intermediate then.
We have one intermediate table going from one table to two tables. There's also a lot of wasted space here. Because only one of these is ever going to be full.
Right.
So this table is going to be huge with a lot of wasted space.
Wait, but just.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, both of them could be filled, right? Those two columns.
No, because each entry into that table is either going to be a favorite comment or a favorite article.
I mean, each table is gonna have an ID. I'm gonna say what you say just louder, okay? So I get it.
Yes, yes, we.
Yeah.
You get
so,
one ID and then one comment, but you won't have ID, comment, and
Yeah.
article.
So one of these is always going to be null. Would this functionally work and satisfy the requirements? Yes. Is this the best solution? Probably not. Is this a good solution? Arguably not.
So what would be the rule of thumb? If you can split it up, split it up.
So I would.
Okay.
I would. I would have, like, as soon as I see that, like, oh, one of these is always going to be null, it's like, that doesn't sit right.
Okay.
It's like, why? So it's like, what do I gain from doing this? Less tables. I also gain more rows. I also gain more storage space. So maybe that's not a
And
good
it
solution.
makes you think about comments
yeah, that's what
about how we would have another one because parent ID might be null sometimes if it doesn't have.
Yeah, but in that case, we're gonna go back to that, I know, eventually.
Oh,
In
yeah,
that
oh, yeah.
case, if you separated it, I'm only wondering how much interactions, how much tables you have to make, because it's not, there's
Yeah.
never an end to the
So,
nested.
so there's like
comments.
parent comments, then you can go comments, you can do grandchildren comments,
Comment.
great-grandchildren comments,
It might never end.
Exactly. Now you're managing dynamically creating new tables.
Unless you said, I'm gonna do 200 tables, and after you try to do the 200,
No more. You're not
nested
allowed to
out,
comment
no more comments for that.
Yeah, but that's going to be crazy complex.
Yeah.
All right. So, is there a better way to do this now?
Maybe, yeah, if maybe in news articles, each instance would have a favorite count maybe, or like trying to put a field into the news articles and try to put a field into comments instead somehow.
Do we care about this? So Chris's idea is instead of storing who's favorited what, if we just keep it count.
We
Well,
do,
the-
we
the-
do, well, I
The
think
page cares.
We care.
we do
we
care,
do-
yeah,
we
the
do
page
care.
wants
So-
it to care, yeah.
Yeah, so, but that's a good question is, do we care about that data? Do we care about this data point of Manny favorited this article at this time? Do we care about that? In this case, we do.
The front end guy cared.
Yeah, the stakeholder
Designer,
cares, yes, the end user cares. But that's an important question to ask, is are we making this overly complicated for ourselves?
I think this is good.
Yeah,
Good.
I mean,
There's one refactor I would make here.
Ugh.
I know. And I don't know if I would actually make it or not, but I would think about it, make the schema run a couple of queries and see what happens. Is that I would actually combine comments and news articles
Into
Yeah.
post.
and just something called a post. And post would have a parent ID.
It
If
does
has-
have content, yeah, they both have,
They both have the exact same thing, right?
Pretty much.
you know, we didn't put, oh no, there is no content.
well, but comments are going under news articles, so they're always gonna have a parent ID.
I would explore it. I may not land it,
I don't
but
think
if I
so,
do
like-
that, I cut my tables in half.
Hmm.
You know, comments and posts have a lot of the same things. You know, but now they have everything available to them. I don't know if that sits right with me in the long term, but that's also the idea. That's
I think
also
there'd be a
the
lot
idea.
of like, wouldn't
Actually-
there? I mean,
actually
they-
comments is-
Comment don't have a URL, comments
It's bigger.
don't have karma, they don't have a title.
And maybe that's a bad refactor, but that's another approach to take. Is instead of focusing on these two, why are we going to two different tables?
So you just have user posts and favorites.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can really trim it down.
Well,
But does,
Well,
like I said, I mean, is it
does it-
that
yeah.
big a deal?
Does it scale?
Yeah.
I don't feel it well in my head, so.
And his favorite.
That means you would be hitting the same table a lot.
True.
Yeah. So throw a couple of indexes on there to make my
Classified
queries run
favorite.
faster.
If it's not, then it's just a regular comment
For the post.
for the post.
But you're hitting the
comment.
same
Yeah.
area
Or
of this, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like that's
Because
fine.
then you could.
Well, it is a different spectrum of
It's
doing
Yeah.
software, like hitting that hard disk.
But you wouldn't know who was favorited by.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
when
you're
it
the
was
same
favorited.
space.
So
That's why we're-
That's a performance
at the
issue.
end of the day,
Yeah.
this actually isn't that bad. It's actually pretty good. I'd probably settle on something that looks like this. So we have a minute and 10, 12 seconds. Let's add a favorite news articles. So what is this? This is a middle table, right?
Oh.
So I went ahead, I want to create a new model.
You're formatting too many.
Actually, you know what? I don't want to rush this, so we'll cover this at the review at 2. Yeah. That being said, for tonight's homework, work on your capstone.
Yeah.
Just capture.
Give me a crisp high five for that.
Just
Yeah.
capstone.
Oh, that's not crisp enough.
This guy was sick yesterday, I'm just remembering
Yeah.
that. Go
Feeling
wash
better.
your
Yes.
hands, man.
Use today, yeah, that's why I have a big thing of Germex in my office.
Just for
Don't
you.
touch anything, huh?
Use today to work on your HTML, CSS. Use today to work on your database diagram. And use today to kind of really get a good jump start. We'll be back at review at 2 to check out how we do many-to-many inside of C#. But other than that, capstone.
Just run it again, the three things. Capstone.
HTML, CSS, Java. You can start doing some JavaScript, data, database stuff as well. So like, where are you? How are you storing your data?
Yeah, the
Kind of thing.
little mock-up of that.
Quick question. Is it bad to do the front end and the back end at the same time? And if so, do we want to do what we're doing now, where we're just putting all the tables in at once and then work on front, or can we just do like, okay, I want to just work on my appointments, right?
Yeah. So
Can we,
what
like,
I
just
would
that
do,
first table and then do that.
what I would do, and hopefully this is still recording, is that I would work on the front end and get the front end working, get the HTML, CSS working. Then I start working on what needs to be dynamic. So like whenever I click add appointment, I need to do a post back to my API that has this data in it. So I would do a dummy post, like I would fake that. And
Yeah,
say
so
what
like-
happens when that comes back.
Like creating your own JSON file to mess with.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's kind of like,
That's what I did with mine. I just made like a
Make a
JSON
Exactly.
JSON file
Yep.
and used it.
and then as we get more into APIs, like, oh, now I know I need an API that accepts this and returns this.
Gotcha.
What database table do I need to hit to support that? So you're only doing minimally what you need to actually create the product.
Yeah.
That's why we have you start with wireframes, not databases.
Gotcha.
Food?